Hey, today on the show, we have Lawrence Smith. Lawrence, I am so excited to have you on this show.
Hey, thanks, Matt. It's good to be here.
Not only are you a dear friend of mine, and we've been raising our families together, but we've also had the opportunity to build your custom home through Built by Krueger.
It was a grand experiment.
Yeah.
That went well.
And, so I want to dig into that, talk about the process of that. And then also I want to start out by talking a little bit about you and you being the Vice President of Construction Management Solutions at Trimble.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Did you even know that's your title?
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
All right.
So tell me a little bit about your journey, personal journey through construction and the tools and getting into the industry that you're in now.
Okay. Well, long journey. Started in the UK, actually. I'm only on my second job. Actually.
Really?
Yeah.
In your life?
In my life. I'm on my second job. So I started in the UK where I actually graduated with a surveying and mapping sciences degree because I wanted to be a land surveyor.
Yes. Why?
And I just liked being outdoors. I really like maps. And so I got my early experience with construction then when I graduated, worked for a land surveying company in the UK for a couple of years. It was a good experience, but I felt like, I enjoyed it, but, it was in the UK, so I was getting wet a lot. It was raining and everything else.
Not as nice.
And career prospects, I was like, I'm not quite sure where this is going to go. And so got into sales actually at the time that was Carl Zeiss, which was a German optics manufacturer. They made total stations, which land surveyors use. And actually some used to lay out our house foundation as well and check the boundaries, of course, make sure that everything's in the right place. So went into sales there in the UK. And during both of those periods, I guess I was pretty active on construction projects, both as a land surveyor, worked, did a small project on the Canary Wharf Tower in London, which is the first development in the eastern part of London.
Oh, wow.
As they gentrified everything there. And then got involved in sales and then met some of the leadership in Germany. And they asked me to come over to Germany to head up product management for a new robotic total station that they were launching. So did that. I was in Germany for about 5 years. And I would say, hey, that experience was a little bit more leaning towards the, cadastral markets in Germany, less on the construction side, but started to work on some product lines that were more aimed at construction. That division subsequently got acquired by a company called Spectra Precision. They were an American company, sort of American-Swedish company that was then managing product lines in Germany and Sweden.
Wow.
And about a year later, Trimble acquired Spectra Precision. I was asked to come over to the U.S., so I came over to the U.S. in 2001, and I've basically been in construction ever since. So whether that's at the time I came over in a product marketing role for our laser business at that time.
So not the total station?
Well, I introduced those in as sort of technology that could come in. We then subsequently launched robotic total stations into the construction space.
Yeah.
And so I was probably more on the field side, as it were, for the early part of my career. And I bounced around quite a number of different roles.
Those total stations are phenomenal.
Yes, they are actually. And the way in which they've evolved over the years is that, hey, we can put those in the hands of people that are not skilled and trained land surveyors, and they can use that for laying out.
That's one of the key things that we look for now in our foundation subcontractors.
Absolutely.
Is that they have a total station.
Yeah, they absolutely need it. And I would say, hey, those early years, we pretty much pioneered robotic total stations going into the foundation layout market, actually for large residential contractors that were pouring concrete.
Yeah.
They were buying a lot of those in the sort of the early noughts, so around sort of 2000, I think 2003 onwards, we kind of really brought those in and pushed hard, and we sold a lot into that space. So and then refine the software. So we were working on the software as well to make that simple to adopt for those types of contractors. Very successful. We then subsequently took them into the MEP space, actually. So now we have MEP contractors that are really using a lot of technology actually for their work. So, I mean, this is more on the commercial side, less on the residential side, but they're also designing, fabricating, and laying out the MEP systems pretty much on a fully digital process if they want to.
Yeah. I mean, the layout capability, when you got a pipe going through a steel beam and a ductwork fighting all for the same coordinate spot, you can identify this.
Exactly, way up front. And in fact, a lot of visualization tools now. So, we have tools like Connect AR, which allows you to take 3D models more or less from any authoring system, be able to take that out in the field, be able to use your iPad then to see what the design looks like in real life, or using our Microsoft HoloLens, for example, is another methodology that we offer. 3D visualization starts to become huge.
Yes.
In construction, because that's where challenges are at on the site. Typically, they're not happening beforehand, and so most of our solutions are aimed at getting a fully sort of digital process, and then making sure that in the field, that process sort of goes to plan, right? Where you're building the exact replica of what you intended to build, and not something else that's left to chance.
Yeah, I mean that's like in our business, everything that we build is a one-off prototype. Nothing's ever the same. It's all fully custom. It'd be nice sometimes to have all that technology and the planning and the design work out all those issues before we get into the field. Doesn't happen in the residential space as much.
Doesn't always happen. But I would say, the experience that we had with Brett, the architect that we worked with you, was actually really good in that it felt like it was more of a design build process, which is typically much more effective, right? As a construction methodology, doesn't always work out like that, but when it does, it's a much better way to do it. And I was chatting with a colleague of mine before we started our sort of project about his experience. He also built a custom home down in Denver, and he said, I said, well, what do you sort of regret not doing? And he said, if I was to do it again, I would really go for a design build process where the architect and the builder are really working together from the beginning, because that actually saves a lot of issues down the line. And I would say, that was our experience too, is that I could see how we were getting momentum in the project, and also a much tighter understanding of how the build was going and what was intended from the original design. I think that worked out well on this project.
That's cool. So we'll get back to our project.
Yep.
I want to hear more about, so you came to the States, you're rolling out, you go from marketing to sales, now you're selling the software solutions.
Yeah, so so again, sort of my journey with Trimble has been one of lots of different roles, including distribution development, but a lot around sort of product marketing and also development. I ended up being asked to run the joint venture that we have with Hilti. So that was about 2015, and that was actually when I came out to Colorado. That was the you have to move to Colorado now, because previously we were in Ohio. And that's where our headquarters is, and so the JV is headquartered out of Westminster, Colorado. So came out for that role, and that was my first taste, I would say, of kind of SaaS software development, so software as a service. It was fully cloud-based software that we were developing at the time for both parents. That was interesting. We had a team in India actually that was doing that SaaS software development in Pune. About 60-ish people plus, so probably about another 20 contractors, something like that. So they were building they were building the SaaS software for us for tool management
For Hilti.
for both parents. It ended up being, I would say, a little bit more beneficial to Hilti. In the end, we sort of it stayed more on the Hilti side. But for me, that was a foray into SaaS software development, and then subsequently, one of the leaders in Trimble was exiting. I got the chance to run one of the divisions there, which was again a sort of a software business for MEP. So basically, estimating software, supply chain, and design software for the MEP space, and that was great. We're sort of managing all of the functions associated with that. It was, North America and European based. We actually had more revenue at that time coming out of Europe. So we have businesses in Switzerland, Germany, Benelux, France,
and Trimble's
the UK.
Global.
Yeah, very much a global company, and we continue to sort of expand our footprint into more countries where we've got more solutions. But this particular business was, more North American and Central Europe based, and then lots of shifts and changes as there are in a kind of growing company, and I got the opportunity to expand upon the portfolio and ended up with solutions in sort of ERP, project management, and also more in some other verticals like civil as well. So, just evolution of things as we kind of grow and move. Yeah.
And so now you get to have your hands in all those construction management solutions that Trimble has.
Sure.
And we often hear, and on the residential side, SketchUp.
Yep, absolutely.
That is one that when I interview architects on this show, I'm like, tell me, what are you drafting? Sure. Some of them say beep, and some of them say SketchUp.
Yep.
And so what we like to do is, say, okay, tell me your experience with it. Why is it good? And so I'd like to ask you a little bit about SketchUp and some of the 3D visualizations that architects can use to incorporate into the smaller one-off custom homes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually in our sister business. So it's part of our overall group here. So I'll do my best not to get over my skis. But I would say we have millions of users of the SketchUp software actually, and very prevalent in architectural firms. I mean, typically, the alternate for them would be Autodesk Revit, but I would say in most cases, most architects struggle with the early conceptual phases using Revit because it's really a finishing tool and something to create documentation. So more of the boring stuff, whereas SketchUp actually allows a lot of degrees of freedom around design. And the team has been doing an amazing job actually of making that more accessible. So not just based on sort of a desktop computer, but also available on iPads, for example, so you can really get in the field and talk through your designs with potential homeowners, which I think is the most exciting thing. We have, I was speaking with another architect on this show, and he's like, I came out of college and I'm using SketchUp now, when historically it's been, hey, everybody's using the AutoCAD, Revit, that's what they're learning out of. Yep.
And everybody has their pros and cons probably with each platform. Some of the things that SketchUp I know is putting out is the AI where it's almost photorealistic.
Yeah, and that's been actually a recent sort of innovation that they've been working on. There's I'm excited because there's more to come there, right? I think in terms of what they're doing. But I mean, the ability to sort of put in natural text and then get the software to respond with a design that matches that natural text, right? So if you're looking, let's say, at the facade of your house, and maybe you wanted to say, well, show me what this looks like with a brick facade, it would in seconds draw that with a brick facade, right? So the ability to to have an interactive dialogue with your customer, right? As an architect, and be able to use these tools to suggest design elements, or work through with the homeowner, what they could potentially achieve from a design, I think is really exciting, and something that if you think back, even sort of 5 years ago, I mean, the amount of effort to create those iterations is just really high.
Yeah, I mean, some of the architects that we interview, they started hand sketching.
Right.
I think that's like you're part architect and you're part artist, and they're sketching and modeling everything by hand.
Right.
And to take it where, all right, now we have this. Now we have this 3D modeling that has AI plugins that they're going to be able to say, change the color of the brick to a whitewashed instead of red.
Exactly. And moving past those initial sketch sort of ideas that are there, I think is helpful, because the actual sort of designed and kind of engineered product is always going to be different than the sketch.
Yeah.
Right. And so you get the ideas from the sketch, but to really see it, I think is, pretty novel. And then, the ability with SketchUp to look at things in 3D is helpful for homeowners anyway. And if they don't have access to, or they want to sort of give access to a homeowner where they could look at things in a different way, we have solutions like Trimble Connect that will essentially take any model and allow you to interact with that in 3D. I actually used it myself when we were looking at our own design to understand and discuss with my wife, hey, this is what this room will feel like and look like as a 3D space, as opposed to 2D, which is, unless you're really used to looking at 2D drawings, they're very hard to interpret.
Yeah.
I was lucky. I had, I've obviously worked in that area long enough. I can interpret a 2D model, but even for me, being able to see things in 3D gives you a much better sense of what the feel of the end product will be.
Yeah.
Both from a space standpoint and also from a look and feel.
So SketchUp's really a design architectural tool. Really helps the architect and the client.
Yep.
How does it help a contractor?
Well, I would say it's a visualization tool. So not just an architectural tool. So from your perspective, as a contractor, again, you could either utilize SketchUp yourselves to maybe enhance a particular area of the design. For example, if you had ideas when you're talking with the homeowner and you weren't going back to the architect, you could actually tweak some things yourselves. Interior designers obviously are more and more using tools like SketchUp to be able to represent, hey, here's what this would look like. The benefit of that is that, as a contractor, you can always combine things back into the one model if you wanted to, right? So we do see a lot of smaller contractors, residential type contractors, that are using SketchUp through their process and then always being able to update everything. So you're not working with, multiple drawings and things like that, but you're keeping one kind of model that you're utilizing. And then again, that sort of 3D element, being able to visualize that out on site becomes really important. And you could do that, either with SketchUp or sort of partner product that comes with a lot of our solutions, Trimble Connect, which is, again, this sort of very rich 3D model viewer that allows you to interact with that out on site.
Yeah.
And that's, that can be useful for, let's say more complicated
you
designs.
hold up the iPad and it shows you where that run is supposed to be, and it dials in exactly where it's at.
Exactly.
That's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
So what other software, like you have the SketchUp, what is Trimble's goal? It's obviously large market, not residential. I think there's residential uses, but maybe for a bigger developer. Are there some other things that a custom home builder or a smaller developer would say, hey, what technology should I be looking at now and moving forward?
Yeah, so I think you're pressing on the right things when you're sort of talking about, hey, I want to make sure my foundation sub is using a total station of some kind, right? That's going to give you a lot of surety around the foundation
Accuracy.
layout being accurate, which is then easier for you as you move forward. I would say, hey, tools like SketchUp and Trimble Connect are always going to be useful tools. I would say, hey, there's also, a lot of our solutions obviously are meant for the commercial construction space. But there's some bleed and overlap with residential, including sort of custom homes. So, I would say, hey, there's really some good entry level kind of estimating software these days that we produce and others that could be helpful in the estimating process. Starting to think about applying AI to those as well, so they're no longer do you have to do sort of manual takeoffs.
Yeah.
But we can automate the takeoffs for you.
That's something I would be excited about.
Yeah. That, and I think this may take a little bit longer, but my expectation is, hey, if I think about the direction we want to go in with our ERPs, for example, is, hey, you being able to think about applying some AI logic to cost forecasting and stuff like that, which is useful for both you and the homeowner as well in terms of clarity of project cost and how that's it. The decisions that you make, how is that then affecting cost impact and schedule impact? And so these are all areas I would say, hey, where there's quite a bit of investment going in there to assist with that. And my expectation is some of that would be accessible for custom home builders over time, where you could really take advantage of those things.
Well, I know there's a lot of, let's say, custom home builders, but we're all just contractors, right? And they step into that resi-mercial.
Yep.
Right? And so that space, somebody who says, hey, I do some tenant finish or I do some smaller,
Absolutely.
light commercial projects, you're following the commercial principles. It's all commercial projects.
Yep.
And then they have that that custom home ability to add to those smaller resi-mercial projects.
Yep.
I think that I could see people in that space saying, I need something more robust.
Absolutely. And we have those customers today
Yeah.
that are using a variety of our solutions for that reason. I had an electrician that came out to cost out some work, previously a few years back, and he was actually using our software on the commercial side of his business. He came out to do some residential work, but he said, we're using Accubid to.
It's Accubid is the name.
Accubid was the name. Is the name
Accubid.
of our name of our electrical estimating software. Pretty standard in the industry. Pretty high market share. So a lot of commercial contractors are using that.
All right.
Yeah.
What other? So you have SketchUp, Total Connect.
We'll be here.
Come on.
We'll be here all day.
I'm excited.
We have hundreds of software solutions.
We have so many clients that are coming to us now, and as the generations of our clientele who are building custom homes are coming from more of a background of technology, they want to see more of this stuff. So I think it's exciting.
Sure.
I'm gonna talk about a different company for a second, but I just walked through this 9,200 square foot house in twin motion. And I was like, wow, like when we can do that with a custom home, and it's not a Trimble product, but I'm like, like seeing what technology can provide, it helps me understand the scope of the project. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And there's so many kind of solutions that are coming new to the market, particularly around visualization, that I think will be super helpful for both the custom home builder and the client as well.
Absolutely, because the client, it's so hard to see. Oh, how big is this room? Oh, well, that's 16 by 12.
Yep.
Well, how big is that? You're like, well,
Yep.
okay, let's find a room, measure it. It's this size.
Well, and the beauty is with SketchUp, I mean, particularly if you have the time as a homeowner to maybe work with it yourself, is that we have millions of manufacturer items that are in our 3D warehouse that would allow you to position things in a room. So I want to put a three-seat couch over here. Mm-hmm. I want to put a Kohler bathtub here in this location, right? So you can really visualize what your design choices are. If you have the time and the willpower to do it.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can do.
We have one client who's currently doing that with his house. He's like, because I really want to see how the sun interacts through my westerly windows with our overhang.
Yep.
And it'll show you the shadow line throughout the day. And I'm just like, okay, he really geeks out on it and loves it.
I would have loved to have done it myself. I didn't have that kind of time, unfortunately, with our project. But I would say, there's so much that you can do, and so many. One of the things that you have in a custom home build is that you have a lot of choice, which is a good and a bad thing, right? And so this helps you with choices that you're making or decisions that you're making. Mm-hmm. You can really see the impact of those things more fully when you can interact with the design in that way.
A 3D model, absolutely. I think one of the hard things in the custom home world is there is a lot of time cost in putting together the 3D models.
Right.
That sometimes you're like, hey, that's really important for the client. Other times they're like, you've done this before, Matt. I trust you. Mm-hmm. You're going to be okay. That room is going to be ginormous. And they'll be like, okay, I trust you.
Sure.
Or we can spend the design time to have you understand it more.
Yep.
So it just depends.
Yeah.
Well, hey, Lawrence, it's so fun talking about the technology that you have at Trimble for the market.
And we could be here all day.
It would be so much fun. Maybe I'll have you back and we'll model some stuff and see how it works. Because when we have designers on too, and we're like, okay, some designers just sketch it up. I'm like, no, you need to put that in a model for a client.
Right.
They're like, what's SketchUp?
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Built by Insights. Tune in next Friday to hear the second episode.